Hey, you guys, this is Jules with True Crime Reactions. I've had this clipped since the middle to end of January when this interview actually came out, but there's been so much going on that it just got pushed off to the side. I'm trying to catch up on everything. So let's go ahead and go over the little clips from when Steve Goncalves went on News Nation and spoke with Jesse Weber and basically just lied his butt off the entire time.
Kohberger allegedly stalked one of the victims. That's false. You knew that was false. For anybody who had never heard that before, that question is now planted into them, unqualified representation that Mr. Kohberger stalked one of the witnesses, and that's false.
We do not have evidence that the defendant had direct contact with 1122 or with residents of 1122. But we can put his phone in that area. There are many residences in that area. It's a dense population of mostly college-related occupants.
Everything stated in this video is my opinion and my opinion only. And just like everything else in these cases we discuss here on this channel, everything is alleged.
Is there anything that came out from these filings, from this report, that gave you any kind of answers that you might have been looking for about what happened?
We learned brand new things. Those details that were put in those docs were never given to us. They were given to strangers before they were given to us. It's shocking that a family doesn't get any kind of priority, even a heads up.
But you do get a heads up, Steve. You literally said in the interviews that you did before this one with Jesse Weber that y'all got a heads up, that Olivia, your daughter, got a call from the Idaho State Police about the photographs coming out, that y'all get told via email from an advocate when something is going to be coming out. I also know from people that I have spoken to close to this case, the way the FOIAs work. When we pay for something, the families get it the same time we get it. Everyone gets sent a link to their download platform that the Moscow police uses, or just some sort of heads up that something is coming out. They are actually informed either the day before or the morning of. So for them to continue to try to play like they don't get a heads up, like they aren't told what's going on when stuff goes public, that's completely false. And they need to stop lying to people for sympathy.
We asked for discovery. They said they'd give it to us, but they never did.
That's also completely false. Christy Goncalves herself said that they were given a thumb drive and that they had not sat down and even bothered looking at it yet, that it was only around 20 to 25 pages and they had not gone through it. So you cannot sit here at the end of the day and try to play as if you were not given anything, because when you were given something finally, after they hadn't talked to you in years and years and years, at your own admittance around the time of the grand jury situation in summer of 2023, they finally give you something and you state out of your own faces that you never looked at it. Again, they're lying to the public for sympathy.
So yeah, we're working with legislators. We're going to try to fix this. Idaho has Bill 1135 that hopefully will protect this type of information and make sure that it never gets out.
So according to this, Idaho Senate Bill 1135 is to amend existing law to provide that certain records regarding coroners shall be exempt from disclosure and to provide that next of kin shall have access to certain reports prepared by a coroner. I understand them not wanting photographs and things like that out there, but when it comes to a coroner's report, when it comes to a medical examiner's report, we should be able to see the actual reports that are written up, the way that the wounds are described, the forensic evidence that was found when wounds were tested, if there was any sort of debris found that was tested, if there's anything like that, we should be able to read the reports, but also pay attention to the verbiage of this bill. It only mentions the coroner. It doesn't mention medical examiner. And that's wherein lies the huge difference, because Mabbitt would be the coroner, the one who was completely in sufficient, the one that was speaking to the Goncalves' minor child about the injuries when it came to both Kaylee and Maddie on a phone call that was completely unprofessional. And she's also the one who ended up giving the defense thumbnails of the x-rays instead of the full-on x-ray photos that they ended up having to actually get from the medical examiner themselves in Spokane, Washington. So again, keep in mind the verbiage that this is about a coroner, not about medical examiner, and the two things are completely different. Now, when I try to get some sort of status for this bill 1135, it says that it was presented on February 27th, 2025, which was over a year ago, and that there's no current voting record available. And if we go back to where we actually got our summary right here, it says it was introduced February 26, 2025, and it died in committee. So I don't know if this pending Senate Judiciary and Rules Committee means that there's actually something going to be happening, but there's literally been no movement on this thing in over a year. And that matters because I'm not seeing physically anything stating this is going to be going forward. And Steve Goncalves is mentioning this in an interview that's posted January 27th, 2026, almost a year after it was originally introduced and died in the committee. So I don't know why he ended up mentioning this because it doesn't look like it's anything that's going to be going forward anyway.
Especially in a, he pled 4 cases of murder, capital, all of them, and in the same breath he waived his rights to even challenge it. So why does this need to come out? All these details. I mean, these are like mortician details. It has nothing to do with a case that's never going to happen.
To sit there and say a case that's never going to happen with a weird smirk on your face while you're sitting here demanding that there's more transparency, while you're sitting here complaining about how nothing was done correctly according to your terms, while you're sitting here complaining about Bill Thompson, about the investigation, about the entire prosecution team, about how the court system went down, about Judge Hippler, as you're sitting here demanding answers because to this date you still haven't gotten a single one that makes any sense, you still sit here and say, all of these things don't need to be out here. This case is something that's never going to happen. Why do y'all need to know all these details? Because you told us that we needed to, Steve. Because you've been the one out here demanding that the public know all of these things, that the truth be out there. So this flip-flop, this back and forth, this ridiculous whiplash that we keep getting, I don't understand how they can sit there and not realize that they are the ones, the Goncalveses are the ones, are responsible for this ginormous ass dumpster fire that they've created as they sit there and complain about it on a daily basis. And again, notice, he didn't answer Jesse's question. Jesse asked him if there was anything new they had learned when these photos and things came out. Because again, this is on January 27th, 2026. This is 1 week after that photo drop that the Idaho State Police had to remove back on January 20th of 2026, where we got all of the actual blood spatter pictures, where we finally got knife sheath positioning, where we got an unredacted photo of Xana. So when he says they didn't get a heads up, we know that's a lie. And again, he didn't answer Jesse's question. But be prepared, he's about to lie about it again.
Just to be clear, you're saying, did you even know it was going to come out today, or were you just shocked? Were you shocked by that?
We had no idea. We had no heads up, none whatsoever. It goes to the media before it does us, and
that's awful.
We just find out through our phone starts going off.
The people will say this information can help maybe shed some light into the timeline of the attack, the intention of this. The injuries sustained by all 4 were awful. But the injuries sustained by Kaylee and Maddie and where they were positioned and how many injuries they sustained to their face and neck, does this give you an indication that Bryan Kohberger was targeting them specifically?
No, I think there's some timing advance records that kind of lead me to believe that it was another person that they were looking for. I mean, Maddie might have been part of that, but there was 2 individuals.
Now, it's important to note exactly what Steve is talking about here. And this would be Exhibit S2, an amended supplemental expert disclosure from Nicholas Balance that was part of a document drop that was FOIA'd by an account on Twitter that goes by Sarah D. Irish. A lot of you guys know who that is. You speak to her in the comments. You converse with her in the chat when we do lives or premieres. Most of you guys also follow her over on Twitter. When a lot of stuff got unsealed, but they were taking a while to put it all out there. Sometimes you can FOIA the documentation and they will send it to you. And that seems to be the situation with this 13 exhibit document drop. Now, we've gone over some of the blood spatter report. We are still going through all 13 of these, but this would be what Steve Goncalves is discussing. This only has to do with AT&T. That's why when it comes to the description of discovery in this cast report, it has Maddie and Xana's name along with Bryan Kohberger's, because you need to keep in mind, Kaylee apparently had T-Mobile and a search warrant was served to them for her information. And Ethan had Verizon Wireless and a search warrant was served to Verizon Wireless for his phone information. Considering that Maddie and Xana and Kohberger all had the same company, AT&T, that's why their information is on this report together. It doesn't mean literally anything at all. Steve Goncalves knows it literally means nothing at all, but he's sitting out here playing as if it has something to do with something when he already knows that there's no connections. He already knows the truth. Yet he's out here trying to now, instead of take all of the spotlight and try to say that Kohberger killed Maddie and Kaylee because he was jealous of their life the way that he has before while he was driving around Kaylee's Range Rover, mind you. Now he's trying to sweep it off to the side and say, oh, it must have been these other two people. Maddie might have been involved with it, but it must have been these other two girls because of this record. When again, Steve Goncalves already knows the truth about this. Yet he's out here, again, lying to the public. And for what?
I think all the families tried not to go down a road where we blamed each other, or we tried to say one person's kid was more responsible or had a role in this or something like that. We tried to keep it. Unfortunately, we had to do this all together, and pointing at each other wasn't something we were willing to do.
Now remember, he just mentioned a bill that at the time in January that this interview was being posted had not been touched in about a year. And as of today, March 16th, 2026, there is nothing further going on that I can tell is happening with this bill. Jesse Weber is now going to say, I heard that you were supposed to be talking to the governor when it comes to this bill. That's what he is mishearing, what he thinks that Steve said. And Steve is going to just play along with this. Now, again, it's been almost 2 months since this interview has happened, and we have not seen the Goncalveses meet with anyone when it comes to the government, Congress, legislatures, any sort of governors, nothing. So I don't know why Steve just picks up on whatever Jesse Weber says that's completely incorrect and runs with it instead of correcting him. But let's just go ahead and watch what he does.
I didn't know that you didn't know this information that was coming out before today. You mentioned that I believe you're going to be meeting with the governor. What are you hoping the change will be?
It's things like this. You can't. We had a prosecutor who was extremely weak. He was way over his head. He didn't know what he's doing, and he hid these. There's a reason 6 months later these things are coming out, because he never would have had the support of his community if these would have came out and said, hey, I'm going to go make a plea deal with this guy, and I'm not going to get the details of all the surroundings, the when, where, what, and how you did this. He didn't feel like he had to do that, and he hid all this stuff. And now that it's coming out, we're going to talk to the governor and say, hey, we can do better than this. And, that means we got to do laws. We can't just let one person act like a judge and jury and make a deal. And then, we live with it for the rest of our lives. And 6 months later, we're finding out new details of, the worst moments of our children's lives. It seems like a nightmare that this couldn't be legal, but we hope to make sure that it isn't legal in Idaho in the future.
Pay really, really close attention to what Steve just said, that the prosecutor was weak, that the prosecutor knew that if he took these facts, all of these photos, all of these forensic documents, all of these exhibits, and actually presented them to the jury, to the community, that they weren't going to buy the story. So now that Steve sees how weak the case really was, which he already knew this, that's why they made up their own bullshit for 3 years, he doesn't want us to see how weak it really was. He wants us to know how mad he is that the prosecution sucks just so bad, but he doesn't want us to see the actual proof of that. Why? Why? That's the hugest question in this entire situation, is why all of a sudden the family that has been the most vocal about the secrecy and about how shady it seemed that everything was being so quiet, now they don't want us to see all of the facts that they've been saying that we should have the right to see this entire time. Why? Why now, Steve? Because there's hundreds of millions of dollars on the line, and you know that that community probably won't buy this bullshit story either? I mean, seriously.
And talking about legality, you and the other families have filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Washington State University, where Kohberger had been attending. Can you tell us the status of that and what you're looking for there?
They're looking for $100 million from WSU, Jesse. $100 million, Jesse. That's what they're looking for. Can we be so for real right now?
We're just looking for accountability. I don't have an update on it. We expect to hear something this week, but when you reverse engineer everything that happened, we feel like there's lapse in accountability. And if that's anything we've tried to bring to this case, is how do we make sure this never happens to another family again? And if there was things that were missed, let's make sure that we address those and we make our community and our world a better place, so nobody has to deal with this again. And that's what this is all about.
But I can't trust that that's what this is all about, because the lawsuit is for $400 million and it's based off of false information. It's based off of stalking that wasn't true. It's based off of things that were not accurate. There's so many false facts in this lawsuit, and it's all things that can be proven with information that's already out there in the public, free of charge, and they still somehow felt the need to use it in this lawsuit, the same way that the arrest warrant for Kohberger's arrest is full of false information, unanalyzed evidence, and lies. So what is all of this really about when you say that you want to make sure this never happens again, and you want to make sure that there's accountability, but you want to stop everyone from seeing the facts that would bring accountability? None of this makes any sense. This is just more contradictions. And again, I know this interview's been out for about 2 months now, but I'm trying to catch up on everything before we end up moving on to other cases, because there's so many other things that I want to discuss while we continue to deep dive into this case for truth. But we can bring truth, and we can bring some eye-opening information to other cases that need it as well. So you might be seeing some things that look a little bit older, but again, I'm trying to catch up as much as possible so that my brain will allow me to start allowing other cases into it. So for now, let me know what you guys are thinking about all of the inconsistencies and the contradictions and the lies that keep coming from the Goncalveses. They can say all they want about people that are accusing them of this and that and blah, 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 threat this, threat that, whatever. Well, you might as well just do like your bestie and file a lawsuit against your own damn selves, because the majority of the bullshit that you complain about, you started. But again, let me know what you guys are thinking about this down in the comments. If you like the way that I present this information and give my opinion, please don't forget to leave a like on the way out, subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed already, and please don't forget to make sure that the notification bell is set to all so you don't miss any of my rants, reviews, reactions, updates, or deep dives. See y'all.